Hi, welcome to the Baby Sleep Magic podcast. My name is Chantal, and this week's episode I'm going to talk a little bit about regressions, when, why, how, and what they are. But first, before I get into that, I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone out there who, one, takes the time to listen to the podcast, but also, more importantly, who actually then takes the time to go and leave us a kind review. It is overwhelming. We have been absolutely overwhelmed with all your kind comments and your 5 stars. And I just want to say thanks. So yeah, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for taking the time to do that. Thank you for listening and thank you for sharing. It means a lot. So, okay, so into regressions, why, when, how. Basically, regressions is a form of a learning progression. You know, it's developmental, it's natural, it's normal, and it is expected. So I'll give you a bit of a breakdown of the regressions, each and every one of them, and why they kind of are triggered. So the first regression that your baby will experience and go through is the 4-month regression. And this regression is the only regression that's permanent. Because what happens at this age, your baby's sleeping stages, they change. They go from sleeping like a newborn, which, to be honest, they usually sleep more times than they're awake, to they have sleep cycles at the 4-month regression. They get sleep cycles, and their sleep cycles change to more like adults, where they have a sleep cycle of around 40 to 45 minutes. And what happens at the end of that sleep cycle, they come into a light sleep stage. And at the end of that light sleep stage, if they don't have the skills to be able to fall asleep independently, they don't have the skills to then unfortunately link the next sleep cycle. So they come out of that sleep cycle at 40 to 45 minutes and they don't know what to do, especially if they've been held or patted or rocked or bounced or fed to sleep. They remember being fed or rocked or bounced to sleep, and then they wake up and they don't really remember how they got there because they remember being held or nurtured to sleep. So what that entails you to do, more cases than not, will replicate what you did 30, 40, 50 minutes ago to get them back to sleep. And this, you know, during the night, you can probably extend that time to a couple of hours, if not a little bit longer, if you're lucky. But during the day, it's where the catnapping tends to occur because they just don't have the skills to put themselves to sleep and stay asleep. And until that skill has been learnt, unfortunately, with this regression, that's where it's a keeper. It just stays around. Their sleeping generally doesn't improve much until they've learnt that skill of falling asleep independently. And on top of the 4-month regression, they're also learning to roll. They experience a growth spurt. And yeah, like I said, on top of all that, they experience all those changes around their sleep. So yeah, that's the only regression that's permanent. Other than that, the rest are very much developmental and a progression, a part of learning. The second one that you'll experience after the 4-month regression is the 8 to 10-month regression. And this is due to, like I said, development, but being on the move. Your baby is on the move more than ever before. They are probably by now crawling, if not standing, and separation at this age can certainly start to show its ugly head. And I'll go through what you'll experience with regressions in a minute. So that's a bit of an overview of the 8 to 10-month regression. The next one after that is the 12-month regression. And this again is due to development, like standing, walking, followed by a major growth spurt. This growth spurt, the reason why it's so major is because most times, in most cases, babies are completely on the move. They are walking-ish if they're not already, and they are busy. They are into everything. They're just into everything that they possibly can. This is where I tend to get a lot of questions around 12-month where their baby all of a sudden has started to wake up through the night again. So they had a really good sleeper, but all of a sudden at 12 months of age, they started to wake up again, and they will not go back to sleep unless they've got milk or had a bottle or something, because they're genuinely hungry. So this is really, really common. The best way to try and tackle this issue, if this is your issue, and if you've already had a previously good sleeper, but all of a sudden they've started to wake up at this point, is to work on daytime calories. Your little one at this age is possibly a little bit more distracted. They're not interested. It's harder to get them to sit still for too long because of their age and because of their development. So working on daytime calories is absolutely key when it comes to night waking from this age. The fourth regression that you will experience is the 18-month regression. And this tends to be quite a testing time for parents because toddlers at this age are now testing the boundaries. And on top of that, separation anxiety at this age tends to peak. So this is quite a challenging time for a lot of parents. Not only are they battling, tantrums and pushing boundaries, but they're also experiencing, some clinginess and some really emotional times around separation anxiety. So yeah, that's very common at this age. The last regression, which is the fifth one, is at 2 years of age. And this one is purely because of their newfound independence and possible fear of the dark. Babies don't have a sense of fear until they get to the age of 2.5. So in some cases, once your toddler reaches 2 years of age, they might have gone from being an amazing little sleeper to all of a sudden at 2 years of age, bang, they are now fearful for going to bed, experiencing bedtime battles, because they could possibly be scared of the dark. So in some cases, introducing a nightlight or leaving their door open might make all the difference when it comes to going to bed at nighttime. Now, how long do they last? Most regressions last anywhere from a few days to a few good weeks, depending on the regression, depending on the age of your child, and depending on any habits that may have creeped up along and amongst that time. So, every baby's different. Not all babies will even experience these leaps and regressions. You might not even notice them at all. As an example, like my son Noah, I didn't even know if he ever experienced a leap or a regression. To be honest, he's coming up to be 9 in May, but I didn't even know about regressions and leaps when he was born. But when Cruz was born, I kind of knew about them, and he did experience a little bit more, especially with the 18-month regression. I do remember him being put in his cot at night, and he just would scream and scream until we'd go and get him out. And we'd bring him out for 10, 15 minutes, put him back, and he'd be fine. So he definitely experienced that, where with Noah, I didn't experience any of that with Noah at all. So it doesn't affect all babies. The best thing to do and the best way to manage it, to be honest, is to maintain some type of structure or routine, because babies and toddlers thrive off routine. They like predictability, they like routine, they like structure, and they like boundaries. They like what's coming next. They like to know what's going to happen next. So, maintaining that where and if and when possible is going to definitely help and work to your advantage. And what you'll probably experience in times of regressions is things like a meltdown when you put them in their cot. They resist nap time, they catnap, you experience bedtime battles, frequent night wakings, they super clingy, increased crying and irritability, they get crankier during the day, and then, like I said earlier, with the separation anxiety. So all those things you may experience during a regression, but like I said, it usually only lasts anywhere from a few days to a few weeks. So in those really grey moments when you're experiencing this at its peak, is to offer as much support as you need to, but as less as possible. So, with the clients that I work with and all the families that I work with, when they go through times like this, especially if your baby or toddler has already previously been a good sleeper and they've just come off the rails a little bit because of development or regression or whatever they might be experiencing, usually I'll suggest going into the bedroom and being present if that works for you, but don't be right beside them. They generally don't need you to touch them. They don't need you to rub them. You just need to be there to offer support. And whether that's, a couple of steps away from their cot or in the middle of the room or even at the door. And it might only be a few days while you give them the confidence that they need, that everything's okay, and they're not going to get anything extra out of this. They might try. When they realize they're not getting anything extra, they will go back to sleeping well because they know how to. It is, however, a different story if your child has never learnt the skill of self-soothing. That's a different story altogether. But, if you have previously had a good sleeper and because of this regression or progression, I like to call it, they have come off the rails a little bit, you can certainly offer some comfort to get them through these times. So, what I do suggest, so if you do need to do any sleep training or start working on implementing some self-soothing techniques, don't do it in the middle of a regression or a leap, or even in times of obviously sickness or teething, because you're just not going to get the best results and you're going to doubt yourself, you're going to lose confidence, and you're going to give up because you don't really know which way to turn because it's not working. So you just want to be mindful of times like that. In times of in times like that, you want to avoid even toilet training, transferring them from a cot to a bed. Like I said about the sleep training, you just want to avoid any major milestones because you generally won't get the success that you would expect. So, and like I said, it's all about managing it along the way, trying not to implement too many unwanted bad habits, because unfortunately when that leap is over, they will then continue to expect that if that's what you've been continuing to do. So at the end of the day, like I said earlier, it goes back to offering as much comfort as you need to, but as less as possible. So look, I hope that gives you a bit of an overview of regressions, why, how, and gives you a few tips on how to manage things moving forward. And thanks again for listening, and thanks again for everyone who's taken the time to leave us a kind review and share it with your friends.